Monday Night Raw got a new voice on Monday night. Joe Tessitore is officially part of WWE. In the past, they've announced somebody and they've either started that night or started the next night or something like that, maybe the next week. But they announced Joe Tessitore like 4 or 5 months ago, right around WrestleMania or just after WrestleMania, that he was going to be the new voice of SmackDown. Eventually, he will when Raw moves to Netflix. But man, it was kind of interesting. I heard him on a football game, I believe last weekend, and then I hear him on a Raw this week. How'd you feel hearing Joe on a Raw match versus a college football game, Michael?
I'll tell you what, it was definitely a change of pace that I very much enjoyed. There was, he really did, at least initially, I'm sure his style will grow and change a little bit, but he really did kind of bring a sports broadcaster vibe to Monday Night Raw. And I'll tell you what, I loved it. And one thing in particular that someone on X pointed out that I didn't think about it until they pointed it out, but the segment, which we may or may not get to, I don't know, where Drew McIntyre showed up to jump CM Punk, and he had the hoodie on. Because Joe Tessitore was sitting directly across from where that was happening, he just popped in and went, "Oh, that's Drew McIntyre under that hoodie." And it was just really nice to not be, not have our intelligence insulted as the viewer. Okay, there's a 9-foot tall guy, big, hairy, black hair chest. It's Drew McIntyre and it's CM Punk. Who else is it going to be?
Yeah.
And so it was nice. It was nice that he just leaned right into it. And is it a small thing? Yes. But just kind of a breath of fresh air to the whole broadcasting vibe there on Monday Night Raw.
Well, it's a big piece, too, that he's not a pro wrestling commentator. He's a sports commentator who says what he sees. And what he saw was Drew standing in front of him, where wrestling would have been, I don't know, there's a guy with a hood on standing here. Who could it be? That sounds like 90% of other pro wrestling announcers. From Joe, it's like, what is Drew doing here in a hoodie? And it sounded so, and it's, you're right. It's just a little thing. But it's the little things that add up and make things so much more special. And something else I noticed from Joe, there wasn't the same tone throughout the entire show. He actually had a roller coaster. If you listen to his voice, it was just, if you're watching a football game and they're now, it's 3rd and 15, and there's a big long pass down the sideline for not only a first down but a touchdown. It's that roller coaster you feel of defeated. Man, are they going to get it this time? Oh, my God, they got a touchdown. And it's a roller coaster in his voice that goes up and down, that takes you along on the emotion that you're seeing, and it's matching with what visually what you're getting on your television as well. Man, Joe, welcome to WWE. Welcome to pro wrestling. Excited to have you a part of it. And he said that he didn't think he was great on Monday, but he was a great fan on Monday. And so he just got to call it as a fan, and I hope they leave that alone.
Absolutely. I understand that commentators carry a big responsibility on their shoulders to, millions of people that watch not only live, but, in recap as well. But I believe that the new WWE will allow him to do that. I mean, think of the changes that we've seen over the last year in commentary from people that have been around a long time, like Corey and Michael and maybe Wade, and just the transition that we've seen to feeling like it's a lot looser. And I feel that, and I hope that they'll let Joe do his thing, because it was very good.
Yeah, and as they're doing more of a sports presentation and production, you're getting that matched with the audio that you hear as well. So excited for that. Excited to see where that goes, and very impressed with night number 1 from Joe. Speaking of Punk and Drew, it looks like, Punk said that he was finished with Drew after Bash in Berlin. Drew had some other plans and attacked him on Monday night, which I'm completely fine with. I think the fight over a bracelet was trivial at best. I get what they were trying to do. It's not a championship. And to have something that you're trying to go after be a bracelet, I get the sentimental feeling. It felt a little shallow in my thoughts, but excited to see that the bracelet is done. It's a real, I just hate you. And I'm going to beat the living crap out of you, which is what Drew did on Monday. He's even, the girl who gave him the bracelet tweeted and said, thank you to CM Punk. And Drew responded with his blood is on your hands, to the girl that made the bracelet for him. And of course, he probably has that bracelet put up at home, and they made a fake one for this. At least I hope they did. And didn't break that poor girl's heart, but excited to see this moving forward as a real rivalry. I say real. It's not it doesn't feel as scripted as some other stuff did. The first half of this is now starting to feel, it's not about a bracelet. I just hate you and I don't want you here. What do you think the next match is? We've got Bad Blood coming up. What are you thinking?
I don't know. I would think that this ends in some type of enclosure. Whether it be a cage match or a Hell in a Cell, that, when you get stuff like this, and especially since we're entering rubber match territory, it's got to be something conclusive. If it was Vince Russo, we'd probably get a bracelet on a pole match or or a bracelet ladder match or something like that. But, I don't really know. I would think it would end in an enclosure. I don't recall the pay-per-view, premium live event schedule for the rest of the year. I would assume that we still have a dedicated Hell in a Cell pay-per-view.
I don't know.
Which probably would fit there. But hey, if it ends or if it comes up at Bad Blood, that's great with me. I think the thing that I enjoyed the most about that entire segment is not only are we, casting the real far out for Punk to get that opportunity for the World Heavyweight Championship. The interesting thing is, if you go back in time, a lot of the rumors said that it was supposed to be Punk Rollins going into Mania. And so we're looping back around to this, 6-8 months later, whatever it is. And it's cool to see that potentially happening. And because of the way CM Punk has been booked with his return, there's a legitimate feeling that maybe Punk could dethrone Gunther. And so not only did they cast that out there as something to look forward to in the future, and then immediately say, hey, maybe we're not done here yet either. It's another classic example of non-linear storytelling that exists in the WWE right now. And I could not be happier, because you're sitting there, yes, we're going to get, Punk Gunther. And then it's boom, out of nowhere. No, wait. We're still going to have Drew McIntyre in the fold, who also was, involved in the World Heavyweight Championship picture as well. So the way that we're weaving in and out of these different storylines with all these different people, it's just art, man. It's just so good.
There's something, if you can always, in the moment, it may not have been something that many people had noticed. I did think that CM Punk's promo on Monday was a little lackluster. Didn't have as much feeling. There was just something about it, and I can't really put my finger on it. And then after seeing him get attacked, it's like, okay, maybe that's it. But you also notice that the response from the crowd wasn't that big. There was no real big pop of him going after Gunther. It was just kind of dead, and he kind of just moved on. In the promo to me felt just a little flat. And then you see Drew come out, and it's like, this is going to continue with Drew, at least for the time being. And I wonder if some of that is not showing in some of CM Punk. I mean, he's a pro. I mean, he's great on the mic. So just a little bit under great feels a little off with him when he does things like that. So I wonder if that wasn't I know I'm not going this direction, so I don't really have all the feeling that I have in that. If it does end in Hell in a Cell, and if it's a Bad Blood, man, this is a kind of match that you do want in a Hell in a Cell. Yep. And you're also seeing that WWE is not scared of blood when it matters, when it makes sense, when it's supposed to happen. Like Hell in the Cell, we're not going to have a camera cut away for 15 minutes while they stitch a guy up in the middle of the ring like they did with Edge and Finn Balor. I think they're just going to let that go, and however it happens, it happens. And so I'm excited to see what happens there. Speaking of Hell in a Cell, someone who is famous for some stunts off of Hell in a Cell, is Shane McMahon. Yes, the son of Vince McMahon, the one we haven't really talked about much here on this show and haven't really talked about a lot recently at all. But his name keeps coming up after a Jon Moxley promo on AEW last Wednesday. Moxley comes out to start the show. A little different, actually a lot different. New music, different attitude, different swagger. Simply tells Tony Schiavone, this is not your company anymore. Well, one, it was never Tony Schiavone's company. He's acting odd and then leaves, and everybody's wondering, is this what that meeting with Tony Khan and Shane McMahon was about? Would you be surprised to see Shane pop up at any time in the coming weeks on Dynamite or a PLE? I guess there's still pay-per-views.
Honestly, no. If we are to believe the dirt sheets, obviously with a grain of salt, is that, after Shane blew out his quad or whatever at 39, I think it was, or whatever, he wanted to come back and do some stuff. But by that time, the regime had changed, and maybe for whatever reason, he was not wanted, which I found kind of interesting because in my understanding of, obviously limited understanding of everything going on, I didn't really think he had a bad reputation there. No. But if he's teasing going to AEW when he could come into WWE and honestly have probably more fun than he could before working with, Triple H and stuff, it would seem like a no-brainer to go to WWE unless he's not welcome. And so, but, referencing back to the, the name on the contract does read McMahon, but it reads Shane McMahon. If we go back to that, maybe he's wanting to stretch his wings a little bit and do something just a little bit different since it's not the family company anymore. And maybe bringing that WWE wisdom and style to AEW could be something worthwhile. And you talk about a guy that knows the business for how long he worked behind the scenes. He could be a very valuable asset to that company if somebody is willing to listen. And so, do I think it'll surprise me if he shows up? No, not at all. I think it could actually be very, very, very cool.
They're all in. The most recent pay-per-view for AEW was really, really good. Top to bottom, just a really good show. Yes, very long, AEW style. However, it started at 11 o'clock in the afternoon, and I petition that all shows go to 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and it doesn't matter if it's Saturday or Sunday. Let's just start putting them all at noon on either one of those days, and I'm completely fine. Even if it's overseas, you can let them have it at night. That means we still get it during the middle of the day, and I'm all about that. But that's actually one of those pay-per-views. I don't know how many people buy pay-per-views after they've already aired. They get the clips on social media and what have you. That might be, if you're just interested in, I heard some good things about it and I didn't watch it because AEW's up and down all the time and who knows what. That's actually one, if you just want, for posterity's sake, you want to keep, it's one to buy. It actually is really, really good. And I'm glad that I got that one. Let's move on to the Wyatt Sick6. Not to disparage anything with them, but are you starting to get the feeling that who they're being paired up with right now, who's it, American made?
Yep.
Is it time to move on from this? Because it feels like the crowd is starting to lose interest. And when I say crowd, I actually might mean me. I'm starting to lose interest not with Wyatt Sick, but this feud, and wondering, where are we going with this? What are you doing with this? Yes, I know they're playing things slow, but this is one that it's a group that I feel that we should always have the unexpected happen with them. What about you?
Yeah, honestly, from the start, I thought it was a unique pairing because American Made was a new trio or faction or whatever you want to call it, and you would think they would want to be booked strong out of the gate. And obviously, anybody going up against the Wyatt Sick is going to lose, even if it's not in a match, you lose to the cool factor, Right. And so, regardless of how it's booked, it's very one-sided towards the Wyatt Sick. So, kind of taking your point and zooming out, I thought it was a unique choice from the start. I do feel like it's cooling off a little bit. But, you know, I say this a lot. I just continue to trust the powers that be, because very few things in WWE are missing right now. And while it is cooling off, I wonder if something comes out of it. The thing, honestly, if I could stay on this track but take a slight detour, I think the thing that makes me more nervous is we might be falling into the Bray Wyatt trap a little bit already, that it's a bunch of talk, a bunch of really good promos, but we're not seeing it manifest somehow. You know, I would argue that Bray Wyatt's Eater of Worlds era was some of the greatest character work, let me say it that way, character work of the last decade or however long. But the problem was it didn't transition to the ring, because then he lost every single match. I know. And so I'm worried that Bo Dallas, Uncle Howdy, after cutting a great promo last night, how are we going to see that manifest in a big way that's not, and no offense to these guys because they're doing great work, but American Made is your mid-card tag team faction.
Right now, for sure, yeah.
Yeah, and so how do we make the Wyatt Six, tangibly match their promos? I don't think it's going to happen with American Made, but we're going to finish this up in what appears to be a street fight, if I understand correctly. And I guess we're just going to see how it plays out.
Yeah, and that's coming up next Monday on Raw. Thinking about who I'd like to see a feud with or something happen with. I mean, I think it's almost inevitable that we see something with a Wyatt Six in Judgment Day in some weird way. What it would be, I have no idea. I don't have anything past what I just said. I don't have any ideas of like, oh, what if they did this or one team did this? But just seeing those two, they're both dark. They're both, but it's funny because the Wyatt Six is dark, although it feels like it has a lot of light to it as well. And maybe the Fireflies are to blame for that, or to give credit for that. So I'm not sure how that would pan out, matching those two up. Who would you pair them up with in a feud, just based off name and look?
That's tough. I think you have to allow the characters to exist in the space of normal wrestling. And so I think now that we've done all these promos, all this build up, the videos, all that, I think you have to have a season of time where they enter the normal space. And so honestly, I think there could be great work with the Street Profits now that they're back on the scene. You're talking about some great talent that could be together in the ring. But just like with Bray Wyatt, you have to take the promos and then bring it to the realistic aspect in the ring. And so I'm going to draw from the hip initially and say the Street Profits, because I think there could be a lot of traction there that could grow both groups, because Street Profits are coming off of being paired with Bobby Lashley, who may or may not be with the company anymore. Yeah. Can't remember if we've finally heard anything official on that or not, but so they're back on the scene. You have B-Fab with the Street Profits that is also in the mix that could offset. They called her Sister Abigail once, but I think they backtracked that. Nikki Cross, either way. Yes. But I think there's a lot of things that could happen there that could help both groups. So that's what I would say.
Man, I'm anxious to see what happens, and I'm anxious to see that happen sooner rather than later. Moving on from American Made, that ends next Monday, hopefully, unless they're going to throw a CM Punk, Drew McIntyre at us and something else happen again. I still find it very amusing that they went through and murdered everybody in Gorilla, and they're still welcoming Gorilla every week.
Every week.
I think that's something that I wish that they would have changed with them. They're different than everybody. What if they just came through a different place every week? They came in a different, but never through the main entrance.
You know,
I just think that might be interesting.
There's something to that. And honestly, they need, I'm still stuck on this. I'm sorry, but they almost need to behave like the NWO did back in the day.
Yeah. Agreed.
It's more anarchy than it is some type of consequential mission. And I think if you have people that are focused on anarchy, I think it plays a lot better than some altruistic mission of humbling Chad Gable, But anyway.
Who was that group that was, I don't remember if they were NXT or just SmackDown or just Raw or something. They had a name, but a lot of their faces were covered. It was back during, I won't say what happened, but during 2020, like middle end of 2020.
Oh, you're thinking about, because it had Dijak and T-Bone and who was that? I
don't remember their name, but their whole idea was that all the members had been wronged by people and situations in WWE. I would like to see the cause for attacks with the Wyatt Six have some meaning and some reason, and that everything we catch, the majority of their action happens on like closed circuit TV or somebody's camera phone, and that leads to a feud and leads to matches. But they're always getting attacked supernaturally or what have you. Something that's different because they are a different group, but we have them in regular matches with the full lights on and everything else. They may have masks on, but that's about it. I don't know. There's still a lot of room, a lot of room to grow with this group, and excited to see what happens there. Man, it's been good chatting. We've been off for a couple of weeks. Now that hopefully we're back into a little routine, we can get back to this every week. Short and sweet, hitting some big topics. Michael, anything you want to hit before we leave?
It's a great time to be a professional wrestling fan.
That's right. Love for you guys to connect with us too on Instagram. We're at WrestleChat Podcast. Chime in on anything that we talked about here this week. And for Michael Glavin, I'm the Ant-Man. We'll see you back here next week on the WrestleChat Podcast.